What's going on, y'all? It's Brady. Welcome back to my book nook. If this is your first time here, thanks for checking out. If you're a returning viewer, thank you as well. Today we have a book review of a man who is, I believe, my favorite author of all time at this point. This is his fourth book I've checked out, and I think it was his third published work. And like I said, you can see right here, I have the rest of his oeuvre. And today we are checking out Child of God by Cormac McCarthy. Now, I'm going to go ahead and warn you, this is a pretty brutal book. I feel like McCarthy does not shy away from that in any way, shape, or form. And I just want to give you kind of a, trigger warning before, because it's pretty vile, pretty rough stuff. So be warned as we kind of get into it, talk about what the book's about. So first and foremost, we have our protagonist, or I guess you'd say protagonist / antagonist, because he's the man in question, Lester Ballard. And we follow him in his life in eastern Tennessee, Appalachia, and we are following him after he's been accused of rape, or falsely accused of rape. And he serves some time and he gets out, and then he goes on a rampage. And like I said, that's kind of where we're at. We see a bunch of horrible acts like murder, necrophilia, just kind of keep it very surface level. But if that gives you a kind of shape of where things are going, then yeah, that's kind of where we're at. So like I said, brutal stuff. McCarthy does not shy away from it. There's no fade to black. It is in its fullness. So be aware of that if you decide to check this work out. But one of the things I love from McCarthy is his prose style. He's always so intentional with the words he chooses and how he writes. And he conserves this Appalachian dialect in his writing. So this is a very oral tale. This is something you want to read out loud to kind of discover that lyrical prose that he presents. And it's also very reminiscent of the accent that I have, which I really appreciate, kind of getting to see that Appalachian dialect represented in prose style. Like I said, it's very much reminiscent of the days when people would tell stories. That's how he writes a lot of his books, but it was just exciting to see it done again like this. So there's a few passages I kind of want to share with you guys, one of which is the first opening line, and the other two I'll kind of get to in a little while. So this is the opening line, and just kind of give you an idea of reading this aloud and how lyrical his prose is and his use of alliteration and stuff. It's wonderful stuff, guys. It really is. They came like a caravan of carnival folk up through the swells of broom straw and across the hill in the morning sun, the truck rocking and pitching in the ruts, and the musicians on the chairs in the truck bed teetering and tuning their instruments, the fat man with guitar grinning and gesturing to others in a car behind and bending to give a note to the fiddler, who turned the fiddle peg and listened with a wrinkled face. If the entire book's written like that, and if you don't find that beautiful, then I don't know what to say. So like I said, that stuff is just powerful. And then he has some of these lines that are just so intense and just leave you like, wow. Literally, I annotated this book, and if you can see here, literally one of the lines I wrote the word wow next to, and I want to share that with you right now. Were there darker provinces of night, he would have found them. And that's referring to Lester and just how depraved he is. Another reason I love McCarthy is his tackling of thematics. So McCarthy's extremely well read, and you can kind of hear from that first sentence I read to you, he's very biblical in his cadence, and a lot of that and he writes in that style of the traditional writing. So he's very well versed with your Shakespeare, your King James Bible, your Herman Melville's, all these famous writers of literature, he is writing in the same vein as. And that very much comes through in some of the themes he tackles and such. So one of the first big themes, I think, in this book is the question of evil. And that is man born evil or is man created evil? So what we see early on in the book, our narrator, who is undesignated, is kind of but it's very much like he talks in a personal sense, so it's someone telling you the story of Lester Ballard. And so we see him kind of talking and telling about Lester's childhood. We see him where he punches a kid for apparently no reason. We see him as he finds his dead father who's been hung, no emotion, not sad, nothing. We see him as he finds, or as he kills animals. So like we see this childhood, kind of that very much like it's in his nature. He is evil. But then we have that like opposed in the way that we see like Lester's falsely accused of murder, and that kind of sets him off. And when I was reading that, like he was falsely accused of rape, I said murder earlier, but he was falsely accused of rape and he gets out. Or again, kind of in, if you're familiar with your Shakespearean literature, you have Sonnet 121 was all I could think of. That first line, "'Tis better to be vile than vile esteemed." So you see Lester on this like that breaking point where he says, you know what, people already think I'm a sick bastard. I might as well be a sick bastard and reap the enjoyment of being one. And then later in the book, kind of as he's going on this rampage and doing these awful things, you have this weird setup where you see him commit murder, commit like these horrendous sexual acts. And then the next panel will be, or the next chapter will be him doing a very mundane thing, going to the grocery store, talking to a blacksmith. Like, it's so like, and that bring kind of those like very like hard shifts bring me into my next point, which is the title, Child of God. And it's, like I said, he's very biblical in a lot of the allusions he makes. And it's kind of a very interesting question. And that is, at what point is a soul irredeemable? Because obviously by the end of this book, you're going to think that Lester is irredeemable, that he is disgusting. But on page 2, we have this line, which cues you in for something very interesting, kind of a big theme for the rest of the book. He's talking of Lester. He says, "A child of God, much like yourself, perhaps." So it's this interesting idea that regardless of these horrible things he's done, according to Christian religion and Christian belief, he is redeemable in the eyes of God. He is a child of God just like yourself. So you have this weird biblical allusion kind of talking about these religious themes. So if that's something you're uncomfortable with, then I would have entirely dodged this book, because he does not shy away. He leans into it, he tackles them head on, and kind of leaves you to wrestle with what he's talking about. And like I said, it's very interesting to see a lot of biblical allusions. We see instances, I won't get into too many spoilers, but we see instances where things are set afire, and you kind of have this baptism of flame, like this New Testament end, kind of giving him a new chance to start over again, kind of him being redeemed and him continuing on this horrible path. And then we see this extremely interesting and haunting ending where you have a lot of biblical allusions. And like I said, I don't want to give spoilers, but it's amazing. And like I said, that's something I'd kind of familiarize yourself with. I'd look online and see what different Bible stories you need to read before coming to this book. You don't need to read them, but I find it very interesting to be able to see where he's kind of pulling these big themes and these stories from and stuff. So, like I said, it is a masterful piece of work that I recommend anyone who's got the stomach check out. It's not something that I'm going to recommend people check out, but if you've read some of McCarthy's other work, this is not as bad. Like I said, I would say Blood Meridian by far is the worst of the 4 I've read when it comes to just brutal content. So this is a walk in the park if you've read something like that, or if you've read some more transgressive literature, then check that. Then you're fine. You can do anything like that. You read some Palahniuk, you read American Psycho. I can't remember off the top of my head the author's name. But like I said, if you read stuff like that, you can easily make it through it. But this is definitely a book for anyone who's looking to kind of expand in the field of literature, expand in that McCarthy vein of writing. Then check it out, because it's a masterpiece, guys. It is. And like I said, this is one I don't hear a lot of people talk about, which is odd, because I was blown away. And it's something I love to still wrestle with. I love to flip back through especially reading that ending, because whew, that was rough. But there's a lot to say there. So, like I said, I don't want to spoil anything, but maybe another day, if you want, we can go into that and kind of talk about that. So, guys, that's all I got for you for now. Like I said, McCarthy's an author I'm obviously going to be checking out. I think I'm starting at the beginning of his chronology. Next, I'm diving back to The Orchard Keeper and going to build up and read the rest of his works before we have his 2 novels, Stella Marie and The Passenger, released at the end of this year. So keep your eye out for more Cormac McCarthy content if that's something you're interested in, because that's something I'm really interested in making. All right, y'all, that's all I got for you today. Please like and subscribe if you like this type of content. And if not, that's all right. I appreciate you checking me out. Appreciate you making it to the end of the video. If you're new here, welcome to the fam. Drop down in the comments below. Let me know what you're thinking. Let me know what you're reading. Just kind of talk to me. I love talking about books. I love talking about all things literature. You can literally drop in and say you read something completely different, and I would love to have a conversation about that. If you've read any other works by O. McCarthy, then drop down, let me know. I have 2 other videos on his works. I have No Country for Old Men and Blood Meridian. Check those out if these interest you, because like I said, his themes are incredible. So that's all I got for you guys today. So until next time, stay reading, y'all.